All right, today I'm covering my objection handling framework that I've used for over 6 years in enterprise software sales now. And the best part is it's only 2 simple steps. It's meant to be a repeatable framework so that you know what to do when you get objections. So the key is I'm going to show examples of how I put this into practice, but you want to be taking this framework and applying it to your role and whatever you're selling. So let's get into it. All right, first, I would be remiss if I didn't start off with this. The best way to handle objections is to avoid facing them in the first place. It's by being proactive. An analogy would be if you were a weightlifter in the gym or something and you kept getting injuries and you had to go to a physical therapist to get treated, that physical therapist wouldn't be doing you right if all they did was teach you how to treat the injury. They should more be teaching you, let's avoid getting injured in the first place. Let's teach you the proper form. It's the same thing on cold calls. You can avoid a very large percentage of objections by nailing some of these things I'm going to talk about. 2 of the main ones being your tonality and level of confidence, which kind of go hand in hand. You want to be speaking with a confident, downward inflecting tonality. 2 reps could give the exact same script to the exact same prospect, but one will book the meeting and one won't, just because one was concise, sounded confident, had a downward inflecting tone, and the other was hesitant, stumbling over their words, not concise, speaking with an upward inflecting tone. The difference is night and day. When a prospect senses uncertainty or a lack of confidence, they're going to subconsciously start giving you objections. They may not realize that's the reason they're giving the objections, but who wants to take a meeting with a random person who just called them, who doesn't even sound certain in what they're asking for, which is generally time on their calendar? The person who sounds certain is going to be a lot more likely to book the meeting, and the prospect is going to assume better things about this person. They're going to assume this will probably be a better use of my time because this person actually sounds confident in what they're asking for. The next way to avoid objections is to proactively answer the main 3 questions going on in the prospect's head. This should be part of your script, and it's what I call a value statement. I've done many videos on it. I'll link to one up here. But there's 3 questions going on in the prospect's head subconsciously. When they answer a phone and they realize, I don't know this person, they just called me out of the blue and I wasn't expecting this call. It's, who is this person? Why are they calling me? And what do they want from me? It's very simple. But if you answer those 3 questions, you're going to avoid a lot of the objections like, where'd you say you were calling from again? And what's the purpose of this call? Where'd you get my number? Things like that. If you can proactively answer these 3 questions, you're going to satisfy their base requirements and avoid a lot of objections that you'd normally get. And some of these objections I'm talking about are what I call tier 2 objections. So not all objections come equal, and I don't think enough people make this distinction. There's tier 1 and tier 2 objections. A tier 2 objection sounds something like, yeah, I'm not interested, or go ahead and take me off your list. A tier 1 objection could sound something like, hey, yeah, we've been thinking about this, but right now we just don't have the bandwidth. Maybe reach back out in a few months and check in then. Or, hey, thanks for reaching out, but we actually already work with X competitor of yours, so I don't think it makes sense to me. I hope you can see the difference between the tier 1 and the tier 2. The tier 2 I basically call rejections. They're not even objecting because they're not engaging with your value statement or whatever you delivered to them. They're basically just saying, yeah, go away. The other one, they're at least engaging with you and you've earned their respect in some capacity, and they're giving you a legitimate reason as to why they don't think it makes sense to me. So if your tonality and confidence are in place and you proactively answer these 3 questions, you're going to avoid a lot of these tier 2 objections like, I'm not interested, take me off your list. Tier 1 objections are then what you need to be prepared for, and it's what we'll talk about next. So now when it comes to handling these tier 1 objections, things like we already work with a competitor, we just don't have the time or bandwidth right now, or this isn't a priority right now for us. I think a lot of reps overcomplicate it and start diving into asking questions like, well, what system are you currently using? How's that going for you? Do you have any initiatives in the near future? And they're missing a valuable opportunity to double down and sell the time. Your first line of defense when it comes to objection handling is to double down, acknowledge their concern, and reaffirm that it makes sense to meet anyway. This right here is the simple 2-step process that I was mentioning at the start of the video. 1, acknowledge the concern. 2, reaffirm that it makes sense to meet anyway. So an example of this would be if a customer said, hey, thanks for reaching out. We already work with a competitor. I don't think it makes sense to meet. I would acknowledge it and say, got it. That's actually why I was reaching out. That's acknowledging it. and then reaffirm that what you're selling, what you're asking for, a meeting, a time on their calendar, that it makes sense to do that anyway. Got it. That's actually why I was reaching out. We work with customers of X competitor all the time, so this is more just to get introduced and aligned with your priorities going forward. If there's ever a fit, we can move ahead, but I think it at least makes sense to introduce you to the rest of my team because we'll be the ones supporting you for the foreseeable future. So does next Wednesday or Thursday work for you? Now again, it's not the exact words I just gave you, it's the framework of acknowledge the concern and reaffirm. Let's do a different one now. Let's say they said, hey, thanks for reaching out. We just don't have the bandwidth or the time right now for this. Maybe reach back out down the line. I would say, got it. Yeah, that's actually why I was reaching out. I know it's your busy season. I assumed you had other priorities right now that you're not just gonna drop. This is more just to get introduced and aligned going forward though, so that when you do have that bandwidth, our team is ready to support you right out of the gate. Do you have 15 or 20 minutes, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday next week? So find the words that are comfortable for you. Each objection is gonna be a little different in the way you respond to it. That's why I teach this framework of acknowledge the concern, reaffirm it makes sense to me anyway. And what this does is it forces them to give you another yes or no answer. So your value statement, the who you are, why you're calling, and what you want, once you state what you want, that's a shot on net. So that's your first shot on net. If they object to it, you double down, sell the time, acknowledge the concern, reaffirm it makes sense to me anyway. That's your second yes or no answer that you've just given them within 60 seconds of the call. That's 2 shots on net. Most SDRs don't do this. They often wait minutes, like 3-4 minutes of just asking questions almost survey style on their cold calls, and they don't even get a yes or no answer. They just get hung up on before they even get to say, hey, are you free next week? So this framework is meant to give you an extra shot on net because a lot of people, when you double down like that, they will say yes. It signals that you're confident in why you're reaching out and this might be a worthwhile conversation for them. And if they say no, which still happens, a lot of people, when you double down, they're still hesitant, but now they're still on the phone with you and they're still engaging with you and you've earned their respect in some capacity. And this brings me over to qualifying questions. I get a lot of questions from you, the audience, saying, Connor, you're always talking about selling time. Do you ever ask qualifying questions? Do you think there's a time and place for this? My answer is a resounding yes. It's just a matter of when you ask these qualifying questions. I think a lot of reps start asking these way too early on in the cold call before they've made it clear who they are, why they're calling, and what they want. They just answer, maybe give a brief introduction, and then start asking questions almost survey style, like the ones I was doing before. What are you using right now? How's that going for you? What would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? And the prospect's like, who are you? You just interrupted me in the middle of my day. You have to earn the right to start asking qualifying questions. So once you deliver the value statement, you double down, sell the time, acknowledge the concern, reaffirm it makes sense to me anyway. This is when you can move into qualifying questions because your intent is now clear and the prospect is engaging and you've built some credibility. But I still say, even when you're asking qualifying questions, you don't want to be doing this discovery on a cold call. In my opinion, I would rather be doing that on a discovery call. The longer the cold call goes on, the more the prospect starts thinking, well, isn't this the meeting that the person was asking for? So I want to be pushing to sell the meeting where I can properly prepare, get with my account executive and run a more effective meeting and convince them of my value proposition there than an off-the-cuff cold call when who knows what state they're in. And your qualifying questions are an opportunity to signal your level of competence and expertise that this is going to be worth their time. For example, if you were a software sales rep, rather than just saying, what are you using for a current system? Or are you currently using Excel to do this? Those are the same basic types of questions that every SDR cold calling asks, and you sound no different. You're not separating yourself from the pack. So all you have to do is signal your level of expertise with just a brief statement beforehand by saying, yeah, typically customers we work with in your industry are closing the books on Excel or maybe even QuickBooks, but as they scale, they're looking for a higher level enterprise tool to handle that. Is that what you're using right now? So I just built a little more value into the question rather than just saying, do you use Excel or what do you use right now? I told them, here's people like you that we work with. Are you in this situation? It's just a little more value, and in their head, they're like, maybe this person does work with people like me and can actually help me. So qualifying questions are a chance to build value, but you want to be pulling it back to selling the time and selling the meeting. I want to be doing that discovery on an actual discovery call, not an off-the-cuff cold call. So we want to be proactive. Tell them who you are, why you're calling, what you want with a strong, confident tonality. That is going to help us avoid tier 2 objections. When we get tier 1 objections, double down, sell the time. That's your first line of defense. Acknowledge their concern, reaffirm it makes sense to me anyway. If they're still hesitant, That's when you can jump into asking some qualifying questions where you signal your expertise and that you're someone who can actually help them, but don't do too much. Your objective here is to set a meeting, not to run a 30-minute discovery call, so pull it back to selling time. Hope this helped. If it did, hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.